Hi, everybody. My name is Dan Gadd. I'm Senior Partner Account Manager here at ClickDimensions. And we're going to get started talking about our GDPR session, or marketing with GDPR coming into place. And this is a session jointly presented by myself and Chorus. Chorus is a silver partner of ours. They're a fantastic partner, been with us for years as far as using ClickDimensions internally for themselves, as well as been implementing ClickDimensions with a variety of their clients. So what we've decided to do today is take you through a little bit about our GDPR best practice. So myself and Lisa Curry, the marketing manager at Chorus, we'll be doing a session here today, just giving you a little overview on GDPR, what you should be aware of, as well as what ClickDimensions can offer to you all and what Chorus can do with ClickDimensions, as well as with your CRM to help put you in the best place for May 25th. So like I said, we're coming together to discuss ClickDimensions solution, how it will be a best practice for GDPR. I know over the past year or so, GDPR has become a very scary term in the marketing industry, and that's for good reason. As we all know, there's a hefty fine that comes with not being compliant. Now, with that being said, we don't want you to think that the sky is falling. I'm not telling you that don't be aware of it, but as long as you're doing your due diligence and using the tool properly, or I should say, making sure that you're aware of not using it improperly. If you're intentionally doing something wrong, then yeah, we know you're not being GDPR compliant. But if you're doing the best that you can to make sure that you're doing your due diligence, abiding by those rules to the best of your knowledge, you're going to be fine. And ClickDimensions wants to help put you in that best place. So, like I said, what we're doing today is going to do a quick overview, just recap some of the features, as well as go through how ClickDimensions do GDPR best practice. And then again, we're going to talk about what resources you have available to you, how Chorus can provide some guidance, and where to go from here. So, like I said, we work closely with them and consider the transition period for GDPR something that's very important, but something that is approachable and something that you all can do. So, for those who are not aware, with ClickDimensions, whether you're not using it or you're not familiar with it, this is a ClickDimensions feature set to cover email marketing, web tracking, lead scoring, form surveys, landing pages, etc. That being said, every month we are coming out with a new update. So we are coming out with rolling GDPR updates right now so that everything will be in place for May 25th. Some of those which are being able to opt in out of things besides email. So I know web tracking is a big piece of that. Being able to opt out of web tracking is going to be a thing in there, as well as full encryption of data, which we already have in place to make sure as a data processing vendor, we are GDPR compliant for you all. The other bit there, will be being able to purge data off. So if you have somebody come in and say, hey, we don't want you having any of our data, you can come to us and we can help you purge off that data. So there's a variety of things that are going into place to make sure that you are in the best practice, or that we are compliant for you so that you can do your best practice with ClickDimensions. So again, just to give you a little background, ClickDimensions is built exclusively in Microsoft Dynamics. And all the ClickDimensions features are native inside Dynamics. So we do have 3 Azure data centers. From a GDPR perspective, we are running through an EU Azure data center in Den Haag. So by doing this, you'll be able to ensure that all your data is staying in the EU, which I know is a GDPR compliance piece there. And so that way we can go through that. That being said, we do have 3,000 customers globally. We have gone through something similar in Canada with the CAN-SPAM Act. Again, everybody thought the sky was falling. As soon as this went in place, as long as you're doing your due diligence and best practice, there was no or very little negative effect. So, but again, 3,000 customers globally. We have over 1,200 partners, Chorus being one of them, being a fantastic partner of ours, silver partner, which is more of an elite status with ClickDimensions. And then on staff for ourselves internally with our support team, we do have a 12-time CRM MVP. So again, we're making sure that we're being as fluid as far as working back and forth with your partner, working hand in hand with them, as well as with Microsoft to make sure that you have a seamless product, as well as being GDPR compliant. And just some awards on us, ranked in the Inc. 5000 for the fast-growing companies in the US. We're the only marketing automation vendor 100% built for Dynamics CRM. We're actually in the top 10 ISV partners for Dynamics, and we're certified on 2011 through 365. So as you update, of course, is updating for you. Again, doing that GDPR ramp, whatever it might be, ClickDimensions will update with it. And then just for example, here's a few of our current customers, so you might recognize some of these names here. Again, we have over 3,000 customers worldwide. We are the leader in marketing platforms for Dynamics CRM. So we want to make sure that you're using the proper tools to make sure that you're in the best place come May 25th. So with that being said, I want to bring forth some of the functionality that we're bringing in for GDPR. So as we all are aware, some of the functionality ClickDimensions has is bringing in new leads via web form capture, and web tracking, etc. And that's fantastic, as they'll bring you in those new leads for you to nurture and eventually grow into customers. However, while you're capturing that data, how can we ensure that it's going to be compliant? Or I should say you're being GDPR compliant by capturing that data. I'm going to mention a few features here that are going to help with that come May 25th, and one of which is the ability to opt in and opt out of web tracking. So obviously web tracking is part of the GDPR compliance piece. What we'll be able to do, put in the subscription preference for people to allow you to track them or not. So they'll come in, they'll be once they identify themselves by voluntarily giving some information, filling out a form, clicking on a link in an email, somewhere they voluntarily give up that information, they will be identified, which you can then qualify and nurture onto. That being said, we want to make sure that they have those subscription preferences in place. So a couple different features. One is being able to do the custom opt-in, opt-out piece. So as people subscribe and unsubscribe, we're going to talk a little later on campaign automation, how we can do that double opt-in process. But we want to make sure that they are opted in to everything that you're going to be marketing to them. So if they're opted into X, Y, and Z, we want to make sure that we're not sending them something on content A. So that's where we're going to start talking about those best practice pieces there. So whatever they've opted into, that's what you can send them. Because we're tying this directly to the contact record, you know in real time what they're opted into, what they're opted out of, and so that you're being GDPR compliant when you are marketing to them. So how can ClickDimensions assist? So what I'm going to do is talk about here is a couple key takeaways from GDPR that you should be aware of before we get into really the different points of ClickDimensions. So as I mentioned earlier in the last slide, we do have that web tracking piece. I do want to show you a campaign automation, but there are a couple things you should be keeping in mind here. So what are those key takeaways? From Article 5, there's 6 key principles you should be taking away from this. So there should be some transparency into how you collect your personal data that will be used. Again, that subscription preference piece, being upfront, saying what are we going to do, what are we going to market to you by having this different piece of information. Personal data should be used in a manner specified when it's collected. Again, that subscription preference piece. Are we sending you a newsletter? If so, are you opted into this? Just for example. The personal data collected should be aligned with why it is collected. Again, this is all really revolve around, let's be as transparent as possible. What are we marketing to you when you're opting into this? Collected personal data must be kept up to date and accurate. We'd probably say best practice would be every 6 months or so, getting an updated subscription preference, making sure that they are still wanting to be opted in that nature. Data should only be stored as long as necessary for a specified purpose. If you're no longer marketing a certain kind of material, you need to get that updated. You can't assume that because they've opted into newsletters that they're going to want to have the product updates, just for example. So if you are no longer sending newsletters and only sending product updates, we need to make sure that they're opted in for that and no longer getting information from something else. Data should be processed in a way that ensures security of that data. So that really comes in where we come into play, so that data vendor processing. So we are encrypting that data so you can ensure that security. Again, all of your data is stored in your CRM. We're not holding any data. The data that we're processing is encrypted, so you can rest assured that that is fully encrypted and secure when it's being processed. However, all the data that you are holding, as far as what they're opted in and opted out of, as well as the personal data you've captured from them, that's sitting on your CRM. And that's where Chorus comes into play, making sure that all that is secure to your standards. So what kinds of data are protected under GDPR? Some things that you need to keep in mind, and this is all just personal data, that you want to make sure that if you're processing it, one thing I do want to point out with ClickDimensions, we are processing non-identifiable data. And again, that non-identifiable data is fully encrypted. So things like basic identity information, such as name, mailing address, and email address, we're processing that email address to send it out. But again, it is fully encrypted. Web data such as location, IP address, and cookie data. So we're holding that IP address in your CRM. We're not holding that. We are going to track when they come into your website. When we are tracking that information, again, it is encrypted, but we're pushing that data directly into your CRM. Health and genetic data, that is not on us. That is all in your CRM. Racial, ethnic, and cultural data. If you are capturing this information via forms, we are processing it back into your system. Again, all this data that you're processing, in CRM, you want to make sure your CRM is secured. You want to talk with Course to make sure your CRM is secured and GDPR compliant. From a data processing perspective, we are encrypting that data when we're processing it through. But again, we're not storing any of it, and it's processing through the EU Azure data center. Now, if you are based in the US or somewhere else in the world and you're sending into the EU, UK, whatever it might be, you do want to make sure that you are practicing these GDPR best practices. If somebody opts out, do not send to them. Again, that's making you that is having you violate GDPR requirements. If you are sending into EMEA, into UK, you are being held to those GDPR compliance regulations as well. So ClickDimensions' role with GDPR. For the purpose of providing our services to our customers, ClickDimensions is a data processor under GDPR and will be required to meet all those requirements imposed on a data processor under those regulations. So that little piece there, I just want to point out, that does not mean using ClickDimensions is going to make you GDPR compliant. What that means is because we are a data processor, because we're handling that data to process it, we need to hit these strict guidelines to be compliant as a data processor. And that's what we're doing. That's what those updates are being in place. So what that'll mean is you are put forward with the best foot of your data processor is GDPR compliant, but you need to practice those best practices using ClickDimensions. So we're not, just because you have ClickDimensions in place doesn't make you compliant. It gives you the first step of doing best practice. Our customers are considered data controllers and are responsible for the compliancy in that law. So ClickDimensions can't give you legal advice on GDPR. Of course, we really can't give you legal advice on GDPR. What we can do is point you in the right direction of legal counsel, software that might be able to teach you GDPR compliance. But really the goal is for you to understand as a marketer, as the individual utilizing CRM, ClickDimensions to send out to different contacts, best practice. What is the best practice to make sure that if somebody were to audit us, we are GDPR compliant? And finally, what is ClickDimensions doing to ensure compliance with GDPR? So disclosures, we're updating our privacy policies to make sure that GDPR is put in place with that. Creating processes where ClickDimensions customers can request details for data subject and execute a range of actions, including deleting off of our system. So again, that data purge. If, say, Joe Blokes came in and said, I don't want you to have any of my data, that's great. You can delete it off CRM, but if we're still processing something, you want to come to us, make sure that we've deleted his data off any of the processing records that we have going in place. And that's something we've updated to make sure that happens. We're completing rigorous audit to make sure our security practices are up to par. Again, that GDPR compliance from a data vendor perspective, a processing perspective, we want to make sure that we're up to date with that and compliant, and that is something we put in place. We'll update on any breaches, which we already do, but we're going to be more in depth with those, the full details on it. In the past 8 years, we've never had a data breach, and that's how long ClickDimensions has been around. We don't forecast or foresee any of those to happen. That being said, we aren't fully encrypted with that data, and we'll update if that were to be the case. And then cross-border data sharing. So we already have existing certifications for EU and US, as well as Swiss US Privacy Shield, but we're adding the standard data processing agreement for more direct compliance with GDPR. So we're updating all of our different pieces there, as well as we're adding features, again, like the opt-out or the web tracking, or different pieces beyond the email marketing, to make sure that you're in the best case scenario to practice GDPR best practice with ClickDimensions. So with that being said, as far as ClickDimensions best practice, what I do want to do is come out of this PowerPoint slide. Rather than just looking at this the whole time, I want to go into an actual practice here. So what we're going to do is talk about campaign automation. So I'm going to go in here and just grab a quick slide for us. Or I should say slide up, production environment. So this is my production environment here. And what I've done is built out a scenario of campaign automation. Everybody's talking about this double opt-in piece, which is a big part of GDPR, or it's been a big talking point of GDPR. So I want to talk about how you can automate that process. So some people are jumping the gun here, and it's something you talk to Chorus about. Prior to May 25th, you can send as many reminders as you'd like. That being said, as of May 25th, I believe you can only send 3 reminders to have people opt into their subscription management pieces or subscription preference pieces. So what you can do is start early. If you want to start in April, you can do that. If not, start in May, that's fine as well. But what you would do is send out that email or have a sign-up form on your website. So in this case, we have a sign-up form for people to opt into what they want to receive. Once they've opted in, we're going to send them that confirmation email. Are you sure you want to opt into that? And this can be an automated email that goes out. You create that email template to send out who it's going to come from. And then from that, once that's gone out, we're going to have a link to that subscription management, so the opt-in, opt-out form. Now, if they interact with it, you're going to go through that positive thread, and then depending on how they respond to it, so in this case, we have add to newsletter, remove to newsletter, add to special announcements, remove to special announcements. If I go into add to newsletter, it's going to add to both the lead and contact record. You want to make sure you have those marketing lists available for lead and contact. And if they opt out, we'll have the remove options here. Now, if they do not interact, we're going to put them into this action here, and you can notify whoever owns the record, put a wait on it, and send a follow-up email. And again, this is all automated. So they didn't interact with their subscription preference option. It's going to put them into that series of actions, and then again, it's going to have that same rule. Did they interact? If so, what did they do? If not, notify the user again. So you can go ahead and build out as many reminders as you like. If you go with that rule of 10% of people respond, I might suggest jumping the gun, doing 3 or 4 reminders to make sure that you're getting 30, 40% response rates or something of that nature. And again, you can do this on an automated basis. Definitely something to talk to Chorus about, set up for you if you already have ClickDimensions in place. If not, maybe talk about Chorus about implementing prior to May 25th so that you can do something like this. So it's really quite a nice best practice, and you can use this tool beyond obviously the GDPR best practice. You can use it for onboarding, for white papers, for whatever it might be, nurture programs. Once you already capture that lead, how do we get them to close that business? That's another conversation with more of a leads to loyalty style piece, but really quite a nice tool there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop back into our slideshow here and just talk about what we can do next. So where can you learn about more? Engage with Chorus. So Chorus has been doing a lot of best practice work with their current customers right now. Again, they are still a partner with ClickDimensions, so if their customer is on ClickDimensions, definitely talk to them about that. If you're a nonprofit, it is something they're specializing with their platforms as well. They also work with obviously a variety of other industries, but definitely reach out to your contact at Chorus. If you feel like coming directly to me, if you're already a ClickDimensions user or want to learn more information, please reach out to me, daniel.gad@clickdimensions.com. I'm happy to provide any more insight that I have on GDPR. Again, work with myself, work with Chorus. We very much work hand in hand. So for any information you might need, if you reach out to them and they want to come to me with it, happy to do that, and vice versa. So whatever you might need. I hope you found this useful. It's just a quick couple notes here to keep in mind as we're getting close. We're less than 2 months away from that deadline. So definitely take this seriously. Go talk to Chorus, talk about processing that data, making sure that you are going to be in the best place for GDPR best practice. So I'm going to open up the questions here. Again, myself and Lisa, happy to present this to you. I hope you took something away from it. And again, we look forward to speaking with you soon. So I'm going to be on for a few more minutes here to discuss any questions that might come about. If not, we look forward to speaking with you shortly. So I appreciate it, and have a good rest of your day.